This time, 24 hours ago, we were bringing you news of the first proven reinfection from the coronavirus, and now we are actually hearing of two more cases reported in Belgium and the Netherlands. The first case was in Hong Kong, and to clarify exactly what we're talking about, true reinfection requires genetic testing in each instance to see if the virus differs slightly, which reports say it did in all three of these patients. Dr. Tom Frieden is the former director of the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and is now president and CEO of Resolve to Save Lives. Dr. Frieden, thank you so much for being with us. So when you think about these cases of reinfection, the case in Hong Kong, Belgium and the Netherlands, do you think that these represent an anomaly, perhaps outliers, or is it part of a worrying trend? What are your thoughts?
Well, we're learning more about immunity and about the virus every single day. It's not surprising that you see some waning of immunity, especially after mild infections. And we're going to have to learn more. One thing we understand is that you can be PCR positive but not have the virus that you can grow from your nasal passages many months later. That's different from true reinfection, which means you were infected with one strain and then months later with another. There's still so much to learn, and I think the bottom line here is that it does look like there is some immunity for some people for some time, and that's good news for the potential of a vaccine, but we're going to have to go one step at a time, not cut any corners on safety, and figure out what works so we can get back toward the new normal as quickly as possible.
So if there's, as you say, immunity for some people for some time, what do those factors depend on? I mean, if somebody is going to be immune from the virus to a certain extent after having been infected in the first place, what does the length of immunity actually depend on?
We really don't know yet. On the one hand, there's one type of antibody called neutralizing antibodies, and those seem to correlate with protection. There was a fascinating study, very well done. A fishing boat went out, 120 people on it. 3 people had neutralizing antibodies. 2 of them definitely didn't get infected, whereas almost everyone else did. The third person had very low levels of PCR positivity. Not clear if that was persistent infection or a low-grade reinfection, but that probably wouldn't be associated with infectivity or illness. Still, so much we don't know, but bottom line here, vaccination is likely going to be possible, but we're going to have to learn about it one step at a time and not cut any corners on safety.
So vaccination is going to be possible. Will it likely mean that once you've had the vaccine, you will need a booster, or is it going to be like the flu shot where you simply have to get a coronavirus vaccine every single year?
We have no idea at this point. Some of the vaccines are single dose, some are 2 doses, 3 or 4 weeks apart. Some of them are lower dose or higher dose. There are very many different types of vaccines being tried, and I think that's important because some are almost certainly going to work better than others. And we have to be careful because immunity is not all good. Sometimes our immune response makes us sick if it overreacts, and that's what makes some people with severe COVID very, very ill, and that's why the medication dexamethasone, which weakens the immune system, appears to help some people in all likelihood. That could happen after vaccination or after infection post-vaccination. So that's something that we'll need to learn, but I'm hopeful that we will have a vaccine or multiple vaccines in the coming months. Then it's a question of making sure that we prove it works, prove it's safe, make it in sufficient quantities, get people to trust it, and get it out there so that people can benefit from it.
Prove it works, make it safe, and get people to trust it. As you know, there's been talk in the United States about potentially the administration expediting the AstraZeneca vaccine to have it in time before the election. Dr. Fauci has come out and said, you know, he would highly recommend against that. What are the consequences of skipping or rushing through the phase 3 part of the clinical trials?
We need science, not politics. And what happened over the weekend with convalescent plasma is not reassuring. You had a headline and you had statistical statements that were not valid. They were not scientifically justified. Now, plasma therapy may be helpful, but we don't know which patients it's helpful for, which plasma is most helpful, how we can optimize it, and we need to learn that so we can protect people as well as possible. And if that's a dress rehearsal for what we're going to see with an unproven vaccine, I'm really concerned about what that will do to our ability to gain people's trust, not only in the COVID vaccine, but in all vaccines, because vaccines are a great benefit to people everywhere, but we have to maintain that trust.